We're here at the Tech Open Air Conference in the center of Berlin with entrepreneurs and innovators from all over the world. And we're lucky to have as a guest Ali Jelveh, the Chief Revolutionary Officer of Protonet, a man at the center of innovation and technology development in Germany, right in the field of data security and data ownership. Tell us a little bit about the company, and then I'll ask you a few tough questions.
Okay, so we believe that people should own their data, and we believe that they should be able to take responsibility back without having to lose the comfort that they know from technology today. So we build something that we call a personal server, which is like the next iteration in innovation from computers to personal computers and clouds to personal servers. And there are orange boxes this size, nicely designed, built in Germany, in Hamburg actually, and with the push of a button they give people power over the data back.
So what you're telling me sounds really interesting, but it cuts against the narrative that I hear all over this conference, and that narrative is big data will set you free. Smart cities, data sharing, pooling all information, predictive analytics to determine based on this data point and that data point what's going to happen tomorrow. What you're telling me is I should be thinking about pulling my data out of that cloud, out of that big data mass, and asserting some control over it. How do you reconcile the paradox of a public narrative about the glorious benefits of big data with a public narrative about NSA and data privacy and the fear of surveillance?
Okay, so I'd have to say at first that the idea that this big data thing is going to predict the future is, I believe, a fallacy, and that's something that happens almost every 100 years in human societies, that people start to believe, okay, so we got these pieces of knowledge, and if we put them together in the right places and amass just enough amounts of information, we can predict the future. We had that back when we had deterministic physics, and people were saying, okay, you need to know where every particle is and the impulse of that particle, and you can predict the future. Turned out to be not so simple, and I believe we're going to see the same thing happening now with big data. Yes, you can. There are some things that you can predict. There are some parts of our lives that can be embedded with these technologies. But this holy grail idea that I just have enough data to have more and more data, enough data, and everything is going to be solved is a fallacy, I believe. On the other hand, I believe that we are moving along a path where we as humans in these societies have are content with just being, a sidekick, a statist in our own life's movies. So I want to communicate with you, and I'm going to take the simplest tool available. I don't care if it's a Google Talk or Skype or WhatsApp or whatever else brand name there is in there. I just want to communicate. And in our mindsets that we have today, we see the how it's working as something that doesn't interest us. So we don't want to see behind the scenes. So we take whatever tech is available, and the tech that's available is the big data tech of today.
So let me break it down a little bit, because I see myself doing this. I see people all over this campus, looking at their phones, yep, and downloading the new app that they just got from the guy at the booth who's doing something cool, and the user agreement comes up and they just click yes, okay, I've read that, I agree to it, get me to the cool thing. People, no matter how much they say they're worried about data privacy, no matter how much they're worried about surveillance, they want that convenience, they want that,
absolutely,
that quality of use. Do you think there's a difference between what people are willing to tolerate when it comes to giving data to companies for commercial purposes, where they may not know exactly what that company is doing with their data, but they understand it's a transaction. I give you my data, you give me something cool in return. Versus how people feel about giving their data to government. How people feel about law enforcement and intelligence agencies having access to their data. can we separate those two things and identify one set of values in commerce and another set of values in security?
I think to a certain degree you'd have to do that, and I believe that people would see those two differently, but in the end, they don't see them at all. So that's just what you said. They just click through whatever agreement is there, and somehow they know that the government is effectively capturing all that data, and it's one government, two governments, three governments, whatever amount of governments. We know that today, and I believe that yes, there should be a difference in these two, and the way we interact with them, and the rules that should govern these types of collections of data. But I also see that it doesn't matter to the people. It doesn't matter, not because it really doesn't matter, because deep down we see it, and we saw it in our crowdfunding campaign that people went. It matters to them. It matters deep down. It matters, but you live in a narrative where these things are as they are, and you can't change them. And that's the deal you have. You want to use these cool tools, you're gonna have to accept the terms. And you wanna use these cool tools, and you're gonna have to accept that the governments are spying on these things.
So it sounds like what you're talking about is a new social contract for the digital age, a new idea of what a rule-based society looks like when data is a currency in the marketplace, and data is a highly sought after asset in law enforcement and intelligence activities. And I think working with government is the only way to apply those kinds of rules at the macro level and give people a new idea of what's possible and reverse that sense of powerlessness. But how do we empower the individual? I like the idea of people saying, I'm taking control of my data, I'm going to own it, I'm going to put a Protonet server under my desk, and people come in and say, how can you be sure your data is secure? You can say, it's right there.
It's right there.
And
absolutely.
What's interesting to me about this, and I want you to react here, is it seems like you're going back to the early days of the internet. I mean, what was the internet in the beginning? What was the PC revolution? It was taking data and computing power off of mainframes in the center of the network and distributing out to the edges. And now, what happens 30 years after the invention of the internet?
It went back.
Reconcentrating data up into the cloud, and we're creating these single points of failure, and we're creating these giant companies that can be instrumentalized by governments to get access to your data in ways that you could never dream of. Is what you're doing at Protonet a kind of back to basics, a re-decentralization?
We see these as cycles, and we see these cycles in tech at so many different places, and we believe it's oscillating. It's oscillating between the mainframes and the PCs, and back to the mainframes that are now called clouds, and which are basically servers, and back to something that we call personal server in symmetry to what happened before. And I see the same thing as you said, these 2 points. So there are 2 aspects of those. The one thing that we learn in building this and crowdfunding this is that deep down, people want to be in charge of their lives, want to stand on their 2 feet and decide where this world is going. And in the narrative that they're stuck in is telling them that's not possible. So they have this kind of conflict, and you can see that the product that we built really entices a feeling, a gut feeling of this is what I want. On the other hand, once that happened, once you switched into that new world that you're in control, obviously you're gonna have to have tools that help you, that don't stand in your way, and that's something that we want to provide. On the other hand, you're gonna have to have, I think, you're gonna have to understand the government is there to help you as a citizen, and not the other way around. You're not there to help the government do stuff. The government is there to help you as a citizen, and as such, I believe that between today in this new world where we own our data and we control and can combine it in whatever form we want, still using also services that are centralized, is a law away. So it's just one law away to take back that control, but you have to switch the narrative.
So take home point, people want to be in control of their own data deep down.
Destiny. Data is just a manifestation of these things.
It's on the market and companies like Protonet to give them the tools they need to take control of their own data. And it's on governments to build a new social contract for the digital age, a rule-based society that modernizes privacy and security policy.
Totally agree.
Time to get to work.
Time to get to work.
Ali Jelveh, thank you very much for joining us. We're at Tech Open Air talking about taking back ownership of your data.